Hello and welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we're looking at the gale of impeachment we have in the country as we speak. Adamawa State, I should say former Adamawa State Governor Murtala Nyako is no more. He's been removed from office, and we have the Speaker of the State House of Assembly now acting as governor, and as a matter of fact, he's going to continue to act as governor for the next 3 months when fresh election will be conducted. So it's quite interesting what has happened in Adamawa State, because what has happened in Adamawa State is similar to what happened in Delta State in 2010. Just take your mind back to 2010. Governor Emmanuel Uduaghan, towards the end of 2010, was, of course, removed from office by the court, and so the Speaker of the State House of Assembly had to come in, act as governor for 3 months, and after 3 months the people of Delta State went to the polls and of course elected Governor Emmanuel Uduaghan. And then just few months down the line there was another election, that's the general election, where of course Dr. Emmanuel Uduaghan was elected again. So in Adamawa State, that's exactly what is going to play out, because that is the provision of the Constitution. The current acting governor, that's the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Umaro Fintiri, will act as governor for 3 months. So we're looking at a situation where sometime around November this year, there will be governorship election in Adamawa State. But the funniest thing is that whoever emerges the winner of that governorship election and becomes governor will only be there for just a few months, because by February there'll be another governorship election. Of course, February is when general elections are scheduled to take place. And so it means whoever becomes governor, say by November or thereabout, when the elections will take place, will just be in office till May 29th next year, when he would have to hand over to another governor. So that's the political dynamics that we're going to see in Adamawa State. But quite interesting what is happening with this impeachment. The APC accusing the president of being responsible, that what the president is actually trying to do now is to reclaim the APC states. I mean, some of the states used to be PDP anyway. That what the president is doing now is just reclaiming the states through underhand tactics. That he's using the lawmakers. For instance, in Adamawa State, there were allegations by the APC that the lawmakers got $300,000 each to remove the governor, that's Murtala Nyako. And of course, you know, there's something happening in Nasarawa State, another, well, APC-controlled state. Well, we'll still get to find out how you define a state as APC or PDP controlled. But the governor there is facing impeachment, and well, we don't know how that is going to play out, but he's facing impeachment, and too bad for him too. Majority of the members in the State House of Assembly are PDP members, so we don't know if the governor is going to go eventually. But that's what we're looking about today. And joining me on the program are two top-rated political analysts. Let me just introduce the first of them, Achike Chude, of course, a political affairs analyst, joining us here on the program. And then we have Liberos Oshoma also joining us, two top-rated political analysts. Let me start with you, Liberos. Look at what has happened in Adamawa State and place it against the allegation by the APC that, you know, the PDP was responsible, the presidency was responsible, and that the lawmakers actually got $300,000 each to remove the governor. How, for you, what do you make of these allegations and the fact that this governor was removed so easily, so to speak?
For me, there will always be allegations. That's the way I see it. Politicians will always allege. But basically, what I look at is the process of impeachment. Does the House have power to do what they have done? And if they have powers to do what they have done, politicians, the essence of politicking really is for you to outsmart your opponent. And that's the essence of election. And the same way the APC are jostling to take over even states controlled by PDP. You don't expect the PDP to sit down, fold their hands, and not also look for ways to maneuver to see how they can take over states controlled by APC. And so if you leave your flanks open, your opponents will overrun you. And that's basically what has happened in Adamawa State.
And Achike, talking about leaving your flanks open, a lot of people have said, look, let's face it, Murtala Nyako left his flanks open. He defected from the PDP to the APC. and then left all his members, the members of the State House of Assembly, not defecting with him. As a matter of fact, even his deputy governor did not defect with him. and that he now decided to take on the presidency when, you know, he left his flanks open?
When you do that, you're asking for trouble. And what you get at the end of the day is loads of trouble. And that is what we have seen. That is why he's no longer governor of Adamawa State. It should be clear to every single one of them that the National Assembly could be pivotal to your remaining in power.
The State House of Assembly, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, the State House of Assembly at the state level, and then at the national level, the National Assembly and so on, that they could be very key and pivotal in you remaining in office. And I think they realized that because from 1999, most of them realized that because from 1999 to date, there was a flurry of activities, a show of strength and supremacy between the state houses of assembly and the state governors. So much turbulence, especially from 1999 to 2003, the first election after 1999, you know, the second election. And, you know, it was very, very obvious that the new members of the State House of Assembly were trying to assert their influence, you know, over the state, over the state governor and so on, and the state governors would not, you know, allow that. And so there was this constant friction. But over time, we saw a stability in most of the state houses of assembly in the country. And of course, you know, at some of them, you know, the one that happened took place in Ogun State between, I think, when Gbega Daniel was governor, and then members of the state House of Assembly also wanted to remove him. To remove him. Yes, those that were opposed to him had the majority. I think it was around, at the time, it was around 14, 15 to around 9 or 10 or 11, something close to that. That's quite but they never were able to muster the kind of, you know, majority, the two-third majority that was needed to unseat Gbega Daniel. He didn't have the majority, but he held on firmly to all those members that were loyal to him. And they were with him till the end. And Murtala Nyako did not do that. When Abdul Fattah Ahmed of Kwara State defected from the PDP to the APC, he moved with virtually all the members of you know, his political party into his new camp, into the APC and so on. Same thing with Amechi. Now the Amechi scenario is almost the same thing, because you now have about 5 or 6 people that are not loyal to him, but all the other people are loyal to him. So you hold on firmly to them. And how do you hold on, you know, to them? 2 ways they can be used. By the federal government, the state, you know, the federal police can be used against a state governor, especially when, you know, the impeachment gale is blowing. They are always sure of the protection of the federal government, you know, if they are going to do the bidding of the party in power at the center. But at the same time, since you know as a governor that you cannot call on, you know, the help of the police to intimidate the assembly members into passivity or docility, what you do is to hold them by other means. What other means? It's not about principles, it's not about ideology. This is just reality. It's about the corruption in the system. That is, this is the corruption that has kept some of them where they are today. And it is the same corruption, you know, that they have used in, you know, having the loyalty or the continuous loyalty of members of the State House of Assembly. Somewhere along the line, Nyako became very, very careless, or because I do not understand. He's a politician, and he's not a first-time governor, and he has seen what has been going on in this country. Why he would allow that kind of situation to arise? And then, not just that, if he had remained in the PDP, this would not have happened, because the PDP would have used their machinery effectively to make sure that those recalcitrant members or stubborn members of the State House of Assembly in Adamawa State will remain loyal to the party, even if they do not like the government.
I'm going to come back to you. Do you think it was a terrible mistake on the part of Nyako to have defected to the APC without carrying his members along? Tell me, if you were the governor, if you were Governor Nyako, for instance, or former Governor Nyako, what would you have done differently?
It's called, in political circles in Nigeria, it's called insurance policy. You don't move without your insurance. And the House of Assembly, knowing the enormous powers of the House of Assembly in Section 188 in terms of impeachment, and if procedure followed properly, the court has no power to even question, you know, the move. You ensure that you perpetually keep your House of Assembly members in check. You even saw what happened.
Or at least the majority.
The majority of the members. We saw Shomole do the same thing. The moment he was pronounced governor by the Court of Appeal in Benin, when he came in, he had a working relationship with the then leadership of the State House of Assembly.
That was predominantly PDP.
That was predominantly PDP
time.
Until there were other by-elections conducted, until he was able to control the majority of the members of the House of Assembly. The moment he was able to control the majority of the House of the membership, we saw that crisis between the then Speaker Zakawanu and Oshomole, and then the eventual lawmakers going to Abuja to sit and all of that. And so it has always been a practice in our political development. And so for a governor who is not a first-time governor to leave, like I continually say, to leave his flank open, even when you know fully well that your deputy did not move with you. We also saw it here in Lagos, if you remember, in 1999, in Tinubu's tenure, when the deputy, it was alleged that the deputy became ambitious. You know, they used the same House of Assembly to push him out. Even Fashola, it happened to Fashola. It was the court that saved him. It was the same House of Assembly that was used against him. And so, in the case of Amechi, you saw after the crisis in the House, you saw how the House of Assembly... I
mean, Amechi would have been a gunner by now.
I'm telling you, you saw how the House of Assembly hurriedly House of Assembly members went to, sympathize with the governor the very next morning in a breakfast meeting, all of them pledging their loyalty to the governor. And after the impeachment of Inyako, the very next day, they all now came out to say, look, for the benefit of doubt, we should be addressed as APC members. In any correspondence to us, address us as APC
just
members.
Immediately after,
just immediately after the impeachment of Inyako. And so it is not necessarily because of the love of the people, but that is the way they play politics.
You just have to spend the money. So we cannot genuinely have a situation where the governor of a state is from a different political party and the members of the State House of Assembly are from a different political party, and then they work harmoniously.
No, it is not. It's not an impossible situation. Now, after all, we saw that in Anambra State. Those people could take you with a pinch of salt when Peter Obi was governor of Anambra State, because there are those who were even saying that Peter Obi was more of the PDP than even some of the PDP candidates that they know, and so on. But at least in name, we had PDP members in the Anambra State House of Assembly with a PDP governor, and he was not impeached, at the end of the day.
With an APGA governor.
Yeah, with an APGA governor. But you see, I think, when you are talking, this is the high point of the ideals of democracy, really, where you have people of different shades of opinion, who are in the same, National Assembly, with people who share divergent views, with a governor, who is governor of a minority, of a minority in the State House of Assembly or National Assembly. But the reality is that there is always danger, whether you're talking about democracy in the third world or democracy in the advanced countries of the world and so on. There's always that danger. That is why when a political party is contesting an election, whether in the United States, in Britain, or wherever, they do as much work as they do in the presidency. They do that also to ensure that the majority of their members, that they have a majority at the State House of Assembly and the National Assembly. Because it's not just about the gale of impeachment. It's not just about a government, a president who commits or does not commit impeachable offenses. It is also about the ideology of the party. It is also about the program that a political party has at the end of the day. It's about the ability of that government to be able to push these programs through the State House of Assembly or through their National Assembly, Congress in the United States, and so on. If they don't have that kind of majority, they will find it very, very difficult to push these programs through.
The PDP has been fingered in all of this, especially the presidency. So somehow, Liberals, would you even blame the PDP? I mean, can we say the presidency is guilty of removing this guy? Yeah, it is true. The president and the former governor were not in good terms, but then the governor himself should not have left his flanks open, because, I mean, you leave your flanks open, you would expect politicians to take advantage.
DEJI, you said it all. If you look at what is presently happening to Obama in the United States, he's facing a lot of, pressure from the Congress, the Republican blocking, if you permit me to use the word, anything blockable from the presidency. And then also take it down to even the National Assembly. You saw the struggle between the APC members and the PDP members on defection, wanting to control majority in the House, because the moment you lost that, it is always very easy for, you know, the opposition to overrun you. And so in this case, if we rest this squarely at the doorstep of the president, we might necessarily be giving the president a larger than life image. We also, you cannot take away from the fact that there are political gladiators in this state who probably also had one or two issues to grind with the governor. This is a state that has the likes of Atiku, Bamanga Tuko. He had a running battle with Bamanga Tuko when Bamanga Tuko was a PDP national chairman. And you don't expect Bamanga Tuko, who also is a seasoned politician and was one time a governor in that same state, to go back home and sleep, knowing fully well that the House of Assembly can be used to impeach the governor. And then all of the governors, the 36 state governors, if you are looking, as defined by subsection 11 of section 188, if you are looking for impeachable offense, including the president, it is very easy to find. It is easy to find. And so knowing fully well that the House of Assembly can be manipulated, you don't expect, you know, even the political enemies of the governor to go sleep.
What do you think about what is happening in Nasarawa State, for instance? You think it might go the same way? We might see the back
unlike Adamawa State, where even the people, we did not see one person protest. But now, also you need to understand the politics of this, that the people have a voice in all of this. Unlike Adamawa State, the people were indifferent because they actually didn't feel the impact of the governor. But here, you have the people come out on the street to say, no, if there is somebody that is beating this drum, we elected this man and we want him to continue in office. And so that might be Nasarawa might not be an easy run,
because whether we like it or not, the PDP controls the State House of Assembly.
Even the governor in Nasarawa had defected, the deputy governor had defected to PDP, and then it's been a running battle in Nasarawa. Remember, before the merger, Nasarawa was the only CPC control state, and the PDP had been in majority in that house from the word go, and so they've always been having this running battle. But when Adamawa tried it and it succeeded, so I think that is what even prompted Nasarawa to say, okay, let's see if we can, you know, take this through. But the people in Nasarawa are saying no to all of the things happening, unlike what you have in Adamawa. And that's also why every governor should need, as a matter of urgency, to have a perfect relationship with the people.
Let's just take a quick break now. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, let us try to define what exactly makes a state PDP or APC controlled. Stay with us, don't go away. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions. Welcome back. Now, let's talk about how do you define a state? Were we not hasty as political analysts now? Achike, I'm going to start with you, and I want us to move very fast here. Were we not hasty in calling some of these states APC control, for instance? And, you know, Adamawa State, for instance, we called it APC control when in actual fact it was just the governor who defected. The members of the State House of Assembly were still in place. As a matter of fact, the PDP structure was still in place. And even in Nasarawa State, how could we have described Nasarawa State, for instance, as APC control?
I think essentially because the biggest beneficiary or loser of an election in a state is the person who vies for the biggest position in the state. That is the position of the governor of that state. And years down the line, if you want to look at the history, you know, of that particular state, there are markers, indicators on the way. You know, timelines. Because
Adamawa had never been APC anyway.
Yeah, and what you have, you know, you have during the administration of Eda Muritala Nyako, the administration of Boni Haruna, the Shehu Shagari regime, the Yaradua administration, or the Goodluck Jonathan regime. You know, it has a way of you know, like I said, timeline, you know, they are dividing the timelines and so on, you know. And I would agree with you that, especially in a state where the State House of Assembly is not dominated maybe by the APC as a political party.
And you look at the party structure down the line.
But the reality is that we have 3 arms of government, all of them extremely very important. But that which is most important is the executive. Others are as important, you know, but, well, in order of precedence, you want to look at it from that perspective. They all have their very crucial roles to play within the democratic structure. But, you know, you have, you know, the executive that is more in line with, you know, day-to-day activities of running a government. They are the ones that run a government.
So
the State House of Assembly does not run a government. The judiciary does not run a government. They just complement, you know, whatever the executive arm of the government, you know, does. So it is that the administration, the executive administration, that runs the state on a daily basis. And so I think that that designation really, you know, stems from that. And like I said, the biggest, you know, benefit in an election in a state is that of the governor of a particular. So from that perspective, but we must also understand the power dynamics that play out. That if you say that it is an APC state, then you must be able to prove that truly the APC is in control of all the structures, of the government of that state. In this particular perspective, the structure, the control of the structure of, you know, of the democratic structure that led to the removal of Yako was, you know, from the PDP and not the APC.
So there is a problem with that analysis when people just come out and say, look, this state is APC controlled, PDP controlled just because the governor. You just talked about Nasarawa, for instance, where the governor is APC and the deputy governor is CPC. I mean, it's PDP. And then you have members of the State House of Assembly, PDP. It just would not be too fair to describe.
You remember we also, you know, made that mistake in 1979 or so. The Second Republic in Kaduna, Balarabe Musa and the MPN controlled the assembly. And so, but because, like Achike has said, because we always look at the, you know, greatest beneficiary, you know, the head. Once you have the head in one political party, and then also
that could be deceptive too.
Yes, very, 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 very. And then also the fact that there's this presumption that the head will always control, you know, even the assembly.
And it doesn't always happen.
And it doesn't always happen like we have seen now. And so that presumption that the head will control everything, and you now, you know, carry that erroneous impression that it's a PDP control state or an APC control state. I think also that was what, you know, affected the former governor of Adamawa State believing that we're in charge here, we're in control. And then also, mind you, this is not an ideological control. It's about personal gains. And so if a situation where you have a governor who is in one party and then a deputy governor who is in another party, because of our brand of democracy, believing that the governor controls all, you have that erroneous impression of concluding that, you know, APC or PDP, depending on the party the governor belongs, is in control of that state, not minding how powerful the House of Assembly and the deputy governor also can be, most especially when the governor is not in the party at the center. Once you have a deputy and the House of Assembly controlled by the party at the center, it is always easy also, since the system is skewed towards, you know, the center, it's always easy also for the center just to provide the necessary support. And the governor, you know, in a flash of the palm, is gone.
It's that support that is key, and that support is cohesive support. You understand, to the kind of support that is enough to cow the members of a state assembly, either from impeaching the governor because the governor is a member of the political party, or the kind of support that is also necessary to cow and coerce the members of the State House of Assembly to move in a particular direction. You understand, because the members of State House of Assembly are aware that they will have all the necessary protection to their lives in the process of impeachment.
Mind you, quickly, it might not necessarily be the support in terms of inducement. It might even be in terms of blackmail, like we saw happen during Obasanjo's time, because they are all corrupt. And so what you basically do, you just show them a security report that, look, this is how much that I've been traced to your account. And so you either play ball or you are gone too.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program, and thank you very much for your contributions. But if you ask me, I would say I think it was a wrong call to have, for instance, described Adamawa State as an APC control state, when in actual fact, the political structure of that state is still in the hands of the PDP. And if you go to Nasarawa State too, very, very wrong. It's proper to assume that Kano State, for instance, is APC controlled because you look at the political structure there, they've all changed hands. Members of the State House of Assembly have moved. The local government level, all of them have moved. So I just think it was an error to have assumed that Adamawa State was APC controlled. Well, thank you very much. That's it on the program. But if you want to watch it again, it's so simple. Just go to our website, tv360nigeria.com. You'll find the program there and lots more. You can also watch us on YouTube by subscribing to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/TV360 Nigeria. You can follow us on Google Plus at TV360 Nigeria, and you could also like us on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/TV360 Online. And you can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is at TV360 Online. Thank you very much again for watching. We're back again next week. I'm DEJI360. See you then.